The engine is starting up. 3, 2, 1.
Is there anyone here that would like to communicate with us?
Putting a dip in your hip, a glide in your stride. Welcome to the mothership, the home of the travelers of the universe, with shows throughout the week. Everything you want, everything you could need. From the paranormal to the supernatural, from the spiritual to the unknown, from emotions to comedy. You can find us at Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and so much more. This is R.I.F.T Nation Network, the RNN. And now, your featured show. Shall we begin?
Sensitive/offensive content disclaimer. Please note that this podcast may contain material that some listeners may find sensitive, offensive, or disturbing. We strive to create respectful and informative content, but topics discussed may include mature themes such as violence, explicit language, or controversial subjects, triggering content including discussions related to mental health, trauma, or other sensitive issues, explicit language. Occasionally, our guests or hosts may use strong language. While we aim to handle these topics with care and empathy, we encourage listeners to exercise discretion. If you find any content distressing, consider skipping or seeking support. Remember that this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. If you need assistance, please consult a qualified expert.
Good evening, travelers and those alike. Welcome to the RNN, the Orion Effect, if you will, right here on Planet Nation. I'm trying to make it.
Planet Nation. Yeah, it's Planet Nation tonight.
Planet Nation is in the house tonight. We have a lot of wonderful people in chat. We have a wonderful show set up for you. I'm going to do the best I can by talking. I'm a lot under the weather. I don't have a lot of a voice left. I have an upper respiratory that I've been fighting on, so I'm going to do my best. But we do have a magnificent show, and I was not going to dodge, detour, or, not be here on this episode or have the show go on. The show must go on. We've got the hit list as usual. We want to say the show is brought to you tonight by GOS, Ghost of Stanton, Virginia. If you haven't yet, come to one of the most haunted cities in America. Stanton, Virginia, right there in the Shenandoah Valley, or just on the edge of the Appalachian. An amazing tour with the amazing history. It's paranormal, it's supernatural, and it's spiritual, all wrapped up in one. So check it out. GOS, Gustav Stanton. Check it out today. Rhonda, I'm going to hand it over to you. Then I'll do the hit list, and then we can get this bad boy going.
All right. Well, hello, Heidi and Renee Cody. Thank you for sharing us out. Michelle, good to see you. Hope you feel better soon. Let's see. Hello, Ryan Jones and
I love
Michelle
that. Good
Wolfong
times in Planet
and
Nation.
Robert White
Yeah,
and
our brother
Brian
from
Booth
down under.
and Elda and Joanne.
Some new
Nice.
people.
Great to see
Nice.
you.
We're going to bring our special guest on in just a minute, but as always, we do our shout out, the notorious hit list of all those people who were at the previous show and those people that need to be heard. And this is that shout out today. First, we're going out to Robert White. Hey, our brother from down under with Things Network, Danielle Long, Candy Schultz, Nick Mule, Joe Campbell, Michelle Clocker Caps, one of our new travelers, and hopefully we'll see him, Nav Haki. He's down in Australia, or she. I can't remember. I think it was a she. I do apologize. I'm not sure about the name. Also to our brother Jason Stevens, Divine Connections, Avalon the Siren. She's new. She's a new traveler. And we're following her now on her lives. Heidi Gould, Lois Clark, Michelle Plummer, Medium Michelle Plummer. I'm going to add that in there. Cindy Waghorn, South Dakota Christian Church. What? Cool. Welcome aboard. S&T Garmin, Skade Kasakusal. Hopefully I did not murder that name. And Ashley Harden. And to all of our R.I.F.T Nation Network staff that joined us last week, we also want to give that shout out to those who support us as far as our affiliates, that being at Midwest Paranormal Soup. Don't forget, check out Jason Bland and the crew tonight at 11 o'clock on Get Your Cup of Paranormal Soup tonight. Also, going out to UPRN, our friends and our brothers and sisters over there. Let's continue to send some love to our sister over there. Laura Lee could really use our prayers and her love right now. She's a strong woman, but she needs to know she's got friends. So if you don't know what I'm referring to, that's up to her to talk about, but we're showing that love. Excuse me. Also, to all those at the Things Network, our affiliates over there, to Wicked Women, which aired 2 hours prior to us. Also to KB, Castle at the Roadside. He a great supporter, and he does his lives during the weekday. Known KB for a very long time. Some of y'all have seen him on the show. Also going out to Eternal Spirit Online. Wonderful people, Jennifer and them over there. And to the Paranormal Network. And that's our hit list for the night. And our thank yous and our appreciations going out to all of you. If I missed your name, I do apologize. However, we thank you for being here. And I see some more people are jumping in. And
Yeah.
I will take this
Ottersburg
opportunity.
and Shonda and Edie and Mike Zirkle, here to watch his daughter. Thank you for joining us.
What?
Cindy, thank you. We appreciate you.
And Bernard Hale just jumped in. Good friends Michelle sharing her experiences. Amen to that one. Now I think between the people here, they can actually give the intake on, who she really is. Oh, Hey, Ward, hello and welcome. Welcome all you new travelers and those alike. We do have a special show for you tonight. We have a very unique lady that's about to come on with us, as you can see, Dr. Michele. I always want to say Savannah, and that is not it. It's Savaunah Zirkle. I'm really excited about talking about her story. I know you did some research this week.
I did a little, not as much as I had hoped. But
well, you know what? We got this. That's what matters. So, without further ado, this amazing woman wrote a book And that book's name is. Come on.
Reign No Evil.
Yeah, I'm
It's
going to
like
give
a
it to
series
you.
of a books. So
Excellent. And I can't wait to talk to her about it because this episode, of course, is the paranormal experiencers. But this is a not your normal experiencer. That's why I cannot wait to talk to her. I'm not going to give you any more because we're going to talk to her. You're going to get to know her tonight. So, with that being said, let us get ready. We are about to unleash the magnificent magic, if you will. Did it work? Did it work?
I can't see you.
There it is. There it is. All the new programming going on. Whoop, whoop. Hello and good evening, good Dr. Michele Zirkle. How are you?
I am great.
Oh, it's unusual to actually talk to you face to face.
I know.
Please forgive
Yes.
me. I'm having a hard time talking as is, so I'm going to do my best I can for the show, but I was not going to step aside on this one. I had to. Dr. Zirkle, you and I have been on the phone a little bit, and we've talked, and we've had some great conversations.
Yes.
And I'm excited to hear about your story because when we first started talking, you guys, just to let it be known, I thought I was coming on one of her podcasts. The communication, I was like, sure, okay. I'm not used to someone reaching out to us to go, hey, can I be a guest on your show? And I was like,
Yes.
okay, sure, I'll do your show. No big deal. I do podcasting. I've done, I do 3 or 4 shows a year. But as we communicated, I was like, oh, she wants to come on our show. Oh, yes. And then to find out your story, holy, and we do use some curse words. We use some strong language. We're an adult show. I'm just saying, holy shit, your story is amazing. You put
Yes.
it out there. So,
Thank you.
absolutely. Rhonda, I'm going to hand it on over to you, girlfriend, because I'm going to open up chat so people can see each other.
Okay. So, I mean, where should we start? I've started reading your book. I didn't get it finished. Day job messed me up. I had to work a lot more this week than I anticipated, but I have a day off tomorrow. So I'll be curled up finishing it. But I'm going to say, wow, just it's such a good read. Oh my goodness. So I don't
Thank
even know
you.
where to start. Why don't we just start with was what are I guess my first one was that your first paranormal experience?
No. I think we all have some smaller versions of that as we're growing up and hearing something crinkling downstairs. I remember running to the stairs with my mom and my younger sister and hearing something that sounded like someone crinkling up a bunch of newspaper. And uh, there wasn't anyone home, so there was no one down there. And then the radio was playing. The stereo was playing the old big stereos, that are as big as a dresser, and you had the turntable, and we had a song on. We had a whole album on, and it was playing that album. Well, my dad was a police officer, and this was a little town in Middleport, Ohio, and of course she called him, and everybody comes squilling in. I think my grandfather showed up, and that stereo was not even plugged in. So,
Mm.
but not the magnitude of what happened at my house in Mason, West Virginia. No, no, absolutely not.
Well, that's the question I'm going to ask. How far can we talk about the book without giving the book away? And, if we get into a touchy subject, make sure let's say, hey, check out the book. I mean, that's what it's
Sure.
about. But
Sure. Yes,
we
absolutely.
want people to know you too. So,
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I grew up Pentecostal, grew up in church and believing in things we don't see. Having a few experiences like that. I've never seen a ghost. I've still never seen a ghost to this day. Um, I went to school for teaching, and I was teaching at a school in West Virginia that's known for the Mothman area, ironically.
Nice.
And I had this incredible experience, and I was into writing. I actually taught English, and I just had to share the story because it all of these events, as I shared earlier with you, Ed, they changed my life, and
Yes.
that was why I was really inspired to write this down, not just
Mhm.
put lip service to, oh, I think I'd like to write a book someday. You know, I actually put in the work and figured out how to do that, how to make it happen.
Don't worry, we got a fan base in the area too.
That's awesome. Good
Thank
to
you.
know.
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes this show a little unusual. We actually have a little thing in the background. We're actually this network because I produce the whole entire thing. So it's actually really
Mhm,
cool. So with this, and you saying Pentecostal,
mhm.
and that you were raised in this. What does that mean? Being raised in Pentecostal? What is Pentecostal
Well,
for people who don't understand?
it's an apostolic religion. It is a Christian religion, and I was raised around uh, this environment where, first of all, you prayed. You know, God was in the picture. For me, it's a different spiritual world now,
Mhm.
but that was the basis of what I had to go on. And there were speaking in tongues, there was laying on of hands, there was healing. So that environment is how I grew up until I got into college.
Mm.
And I think all of our experiences help shape, of course, who we are and what we believe. And then we kind of have to start peeling those layers away as we evolve and as we mature and start looking into things for ourselves and trying to discover, what is this all about? What's this world about? The ever-present question for probably everyone. You know, why are we here? And we start dissecting those things that make us who we are, and we start peeling away the the teachings, the doctrines, just so that we can find out for ourselves. And
Yeah.
that's what this experience, if I had to say in a nutshell what this experience did for me, it was it it helped me experience for myself my own truth of what is possible. It wasn't me reading something in a book that was incredible and cool and neat and paranormal. It wasn't this life-changing inspirational story of someone who climbed Mount Everest and did something heroic. It was more real than anything I'd ever experienced. When I say it wasn't one experience out of all of these conglomeration of experiences that I had over this period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very valid point because all of it equals up to one big large moment, right? It takes a conglomerate of little things to make the big mountain.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Wow.
And
I need to put that
I
on a
kept
t-shirt.
learning, I kept experiencing things, different. I guess I call them gifts, although we all have them, we just don't all use them.
Yeah.
Started opening, and I started experiencing for myself, and getting my own what I would call divine revelations, um, direct to me, direct
Right.
channel. And there was one of the healers that I got involved with, my only healer that directly works with me, and I still work with her. She's a dear friend. She's in Charleston, West Virginia.
Okay.
And that was instrumental in me having that divine connection because I wasn't in a place. I think we all need those people. It doesn't have to be a healer by any means, and
Right.
it doesn't have to be a person. But for me, that it would just, she played that role. But I needed connected again. I
Yeah.
needed connected to source, and that was what enabled me to experience all of this in the way that I did, and truly transform my life.
I like the way you use that source. That's
Yeah.
a yeah, that's a beautiful. Not a lot of people use that, and I think it's becoming more prominent because more people are starting to understand that there's more out there than we thought. You
Yes.
know, the greater source. I'm a two-time I hate to say it like this, but NDE, and I didn't have the experiences that everybody else did, but I had my own weird experiences. And they say a lot of us who are NDE tend to use that word now more than any other, as of gods or the other words. And I found it interesting because I think on a whole it actually defines actually the energy that the source that we come from. So
Right.
I love the fact that you use that. And I also know now you're a doctor. Yes.
Holistic, yes.
Yes. And I wanted to talk a little bit. This is getting everybody to get to know you. How did you get into the holistic side? Is this from family rooting? Is this from your
Your experience,
practices?
or
Yeah.
Actually, it was because of the lady I was telling you about.
Okay.
She was a holistic practitioner. She's a naturopathic doctor, so she's into the herbs and the healing that way, but also with what I would call energy and just. I started becoming interested in this world, this unseen world, and not just in a paranormal sense
Hmm.
of there was something crazy that happened, but also how can I purposely bring in better vibrations, as we'd say it? How can I raise my vibration? How can I clear my space? Like these terms, I
Yeah.
had no knowledge of. I didn't know what any of this meant. When we had these events going on at our house, I had a few people that came to me and said, this is once I realized there was something unexplainable going on.
Right.
You need to have your house cleaned. You need to call a cleaner. And I didn't even know what that meant. I really did not know what it meant, because we were, again, this was don't look, don't ask.
Mhm.
Just that this is like, this is the way it is. And I'm not saying just specifically with any certain people or family. Just it's just you get that mindset that this is where you look, and there is no pasture over here. There is no space over here. It's just, this is the road. And
Mhm.
then when you start asking questions, well, what's over there and what is this? And it is okay to ask questions, but you of course do need to be careful with that. And I always cautioned my students, when all of this was of course going on. A lot of students knew that there was something going on in my house. It was a small town. Word traveled pretty quickly, you
Right.
know. It was she's got a ghost in her house, um, so, but as the years went on, and I've taught for 25 years now, and many students would come to me, even if they didn't know about the book, would come up in class or something, we're reading Edgar Allan Poe, or they would share with me their experiences, or, hey, I'm checking out the Ouija board. What do you think of that? And I always would caution, um, not just students, but really anyone. Yes, ask questions, find out for yourself, but also be very safe in doing it, because this is very real. Make no mistake.
It can be dangerous.
Hmm.
yes,
If you don't know what you're doing and you're not aware, it can be very dangerous. It could come spiritually turn around and bite you in the rear end like a pit bull. I agree.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Completely agree. Um, so Rhonda, just grab me and slow me down because the questions will start popping up as long as I can talk. So the basis of the beginning, that's the first series of the book, right? How it all started.
Hmm.
Can
I
you
have a question
elaborate
about
on
that. How long ago was this?
Okay, that's a very, very good question. I released the book in 2016. It took me approximately 4 years to write it, because I was
Okay.
journaling. I had journaled when it all happened. And so back in 2005 is when it happened. And I was writing in my journal. I was, you know, taking notes, and I had written a short story, and it won a contest in West Virginia.
okay.
And from there, I got had a lot of people telling me, you need to write, what about writing a book? And really had no idea how to write a book. So I just learned from there. But it took a while, because I was teaching full time, raising a
Right.
family, and I was really excited. I can say that was one of the most exciting times of my life was actually, I felt like I was on a plane back from Hawaii when it was being released. The books were literally in my driveway when I returned. And I felt like when I was on that plane, I thought, even if something happened on this plane and I don't make it, the books are there, and someone will make sure they get out there. And that's all I wanted, was just to share this incredible experience and help some people who were open to actually finding out more about how the world might work, to at least hear about it.
Now, okay, you know what's going to happen, Rhonda. I'm trying to hold back.
No, go
Since
ahead.
since writing the book, has your life changed even more? Do you feel there's more of the universal energy affecting you now than when you were writing the book?
Unequivocally, yes.
How
Yes.
so?
Because when you open yourself to the possibilities, and you're aware and you're able to realize you are actually co-creating your life. You are manifesting exactly what you put out there. You realize that it does come to you. It's like a boomerang. And so yes, it kept changing. And it was getting better. I mean, I have had, there's times that it's not always what you expect. There's trial and error. Trusting people sometimes that maybe you shouldn't, but your senses get sharper and your intuition gets more acute.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's well said. That is well said. Rhonda, you got anything?
Well, I was gonna say, I think you've hit on a couple things that I really resonate with, in the fact that you have to educate yourself. It's one thing to be curious, but it's another thing to educate yourself before you go into any direction. But I felt the same way. I don't care whether your spiritual journey, and I call it spiritual journey, but if your journey to source comes from a paranormal experience or some other trauma that gets you just headed down that path, the doors open, and next thing you know, it's like you're like a squirrel. It's like, ooh, that, and I want to know about that, and what's that, and it gets very hard to kind of reel yourself in and say one step at a time.
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned in the book, I mentioned chakras. I didn't know anything about chakras until the lady that I worked with in Charleston. And, like you said, you start learning. I started reading everything I could get my hands on about the little boy who went to heaven and the power of now. I mean, they're not really in the same genre, but it was things that you couldn't explain, anything that was of interest like that. And I also started putting the dots together and noticing that, and I do say this in the book as well. I liked watching Joyce Meyer,
Yeah.
and I would
Okay.
watch her, and I would hear her say something, and I would hear Oprah say something. They were saying the same thing,
Yeah.
different terminology, and one group was crucifying this Joyce, and the other one was crucifying Oprah, because they
Right.
were using, it was all who you're following, and that terminology, and it just reminds me of, Shakespeare, "Rose by any other name would smell as sweet."
Yeah.
It's the same thing, and there's not a lot of difference. So I started, again, just kind of thinking for myself, what, let's just not, let's not, no, stone everyone,
Right.
and be at least able to read, and learning was part of it. A lot of it was actual reading, learning for myself, and some of it was going to trainings. I started going to trainings for different types of healing, just to, not just for myself. I did want to pass it along in some form, working with clients, or um, doing small group work, and also through my writing, which is my primary um, love, my passion.
So did you find, I know I did you find, when you, as you worked with people, mentors, took classes, and I tell this to a lot of people, you got to take what resonates with you and leave the rest. Like I had to,
Hmm.
I had some mentors now that I look at some of the things that I held on to for a while, like, this is what she said and I have to do it this way. And then now I realize, if I had just let go of that a little bit sooner, I'd have figured out my direction a little bit sooner. So that's always what I just wondered if you felt the same way, that you just have to kind of take what's yours, it resonates, and leave the rest.
I absolutely think that's true with really anything. I will say that my primary lady that I work with, I haven't felt that it's been it was just a union of sorts, that we were in sync from the beginning. And um, I knew the first time I saw her that there was a familiarity. Again, like, this was like a past life thing I didn't know about. I didn't even believe in past lives. Um, I had to let that go because there was too many things that came up after that. And not, don't mean just with her, but that's what opened the door. Was So one thing, again, it's like literally going down the rabbit hole. One thing leads to another, leads to another. Well, what about this? In the Catholic Church used to teach reincarnation, but and I also do have a book, The Emerald Island Elixir, that is it's based on redemption through reincarnation. So, and it is a fantasy. But I went to Ireland and was inspired. After I wrote Reign No Evil, I really had no idea what I was going to write.
Yeah.
And I know I'm all over the place with writing. I'm working on a self-help book right now. I've got children's books out that are encouraging to children, and of course that's the teacher in me. I have a going on 6-year-old grandson, and I love writing for children. That lights me up. But I also enjoy the adult books that I've written. And when I got back from Ireland, I started having, I had words coming to me that I could actually audibly hear.
Oh,
And this was part of the process that you're talking about, Rhonda, with what changed, what has opened up since the book, you asked me, Ed. Well, that's one of the things that I has always been there, and I can remember back now, but I didn't know what I was going to write. I'm standing in my dad's bathroom in Nitro, West Virginia, and I heard 3 sentences, and I heard them again, and I didn't know what they were for, but I knew they were not a newspaper column. And I had been writing newspaper columns for 2 years. And that is a result of jogging around the neighborhood and hearing this, literally this script in my head. And I got back to the house and I wrote it down and I called the newspaper and I put my, um, threw my hat in the ring, so to speak. And the gentleman didn't even know me. And he said,
yeah.
"Can you write one every week?" I'm driving down the road like, oh my gosh. Well, yes, I just said yes. That was another thing. If I knew I was supposed to do it and that yes was right there and I wanted it, but I was scared, I said yes anyway. And that is super important, because if you don't say yes to what you do want, you're going to find yourself doing everything you don't.
That
Want to
one.
say something that's funny? It's because I did my vision board. I do a vision board every 6 months. So I did my vision board, and what I put on there said, it literally wrote right on there, "Say yes to every opportunity."
Mm-hmm. Yes, because
Every
I
single
want,
one.
as soon as he
That's
asked
because
me,
she
I was
doesn't.
excited. Yes, but when there's that excitement, I really, when I was driving down the road, I really was not planning on calling anybody about this. I thought it was maybe a newspaper column, and it literally was just the intuition was coming in, and I
Yeah.
was getting to call, and I called, and when he said, yeah, he hadn't even read one word of my stuff. I hadn't even sent it to him yet, and he's saying, "Can you do this every week?" I initially, well, first there was fear, but there was that excitement. I was like, "Oh my God, I could do that every week. Wow." I mean, don't get 2 years, I didn't get paid anything for it. It wasn't about money, but I see now it was about the experience. It was about continually prompting me to write so that I kept doing it. And I kept getting the downloads, and every single week I did it for 2 years. So
Mhm.
that's, it does lead to something else. It always does.
So we can go on the record and say this before we walk into the syllabus of the book is your life is completely different now than it was prior to the book.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yes.
Now, with that, because our intent is to make sure people get to hear your story, that's why you're here, you know. How did the book come about then? What led you into the book? What was your experience, the overall event to draw this all into its shoelace, if you will?
As far as why I wrote a book
You're
instead of
at you
just,
the basic experience it took the book to come
oh,
about.
okay. As far as what happened. So I had been married for many years to my high school sweetheart, and I really wanted a change in my life. It wasn't all about him. A lot of it was just about me.
Mm,
And then some of it is an us thing. And I wanted a change. I just knew that. Loved my family dearly and loved part of my life, but also knew that there was something else in it. There was just a lot missing. And I said a prayer. What I'll say is a prayer. You can take that however you want, but it was a very desperate prayer for change. And it was days later that there was water spraying inside of our home. And we had lived in that house for 8 years. It was not like that when we moved in. That water was the primary paranormal event. It took many weeks for me to know and for us all to eventually figure out that this was not just a water leak by any means. But at first, we didn't know that. We had no idea. It just was very strange. The water had dropped on my oldest son's head. He came downstairs into the living room, said something. Okay, get up. There's some water that looked like it was dripping from the ceiling. We had no water leak, and this went on for weeks. And eventually, well, that night, actually, the first time, it sprayed and hit the front door while we're sitting on the couch. So my husband and I are sitting there watching. It's a Friday night. I do remember it was a Friday night very distinctly. And water hit the front door. We could see the front door. The stairs were behind the wall where the TV and the fireplace were. And of course, he did jump up then and ran up to see. First thing he thought was the kids were fooling around. And, you know, because that wasn't even, the boys will be boys, but that would have been a stretch even for them. So one thing led to every day there was water spraying inside of our house. So that was the primary catalyst for this just incredible journey that it started me on. And I had people ask me, are you glad it happened? Were you scared? I wasn't scared. There was only one experience I had that I can say I was truly petrified. I had an out-of-body experience during this time.
Well, before we go there, let's confirm. You are saying there was no pipe issues within the house to cause the water to come. The water was coming from nowhere. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to clarify that for people. Why is this paranormal? That's why it's paranormal.
Right. The
Let's
wall
open
was
that up.
completely intact. The wall was as completely as solid as the one behind me. No water pipe visible. We had probably 40 professionals through our home over a course of 2 weeks. Plumbing, heating and cooling people. Yes.
Yeah, Keith, yeah, exactly. Because I think, Keith, you're thinking the exact same thing I'm thinking right now. So let us dive a little bit into the psychosis of the situation, if you will, just because I'm getting the giddy mood now. You're starting to sound like the absolute reverse of Amityville Horror. This is intriguing to me now. You've got my attention, girlfriend. So you have fluid, which seems to be water, coming out of nowhere with a massive amounts of force at times with no what's the word I'm looking for? With source.
No source.
Yeah,
right.
No source.
Right.
And this is starting to trigger a whole lot of things because now you're becoming aware there's more to our existence than we thought. Is that correct?
I didn't at the time when the water was spraying for 2 weeks. I did not once think of anything paranormal. I know that sounds absolutely crazy to me right now because I would, without a doubt, that would cross my mind now. I would be on it, but at that time it did not. We were literally trying to find a physical source. I was at school one day on planning. I was praying for help. Nothing was making sense to me. Of course, my husband was very upset about the whole situation, and things weren't really good there anyway. And I literally, again, I heard what I will say is, for me, I heard God's voice.
Yes.
And that is what revealed to me that there was an imprint of knowledge that there was something going on that was, the word was not paranormal. It was just spiritual. This was like a spiritual warfare. And that's when I knew that this was I remember I could hardly walk back to my desk and sit down. And I realized I had to go home and tell my husband that there was a spirit in the house. This was
Yeah.
not. And I knew he was going to think I was nuts because it was not the normal conversation around our dinner table. I will tell you that.
And that's understandable.
Mhm.
The reason I'm saying that is I'm going to bring Keith's point up. He's got some good points coming up. Ron to jump in there, slap me out of the way, whatever we need to do. But now I'm getting giddy about the paranormal because that's my thing. Usually, if you would see something like blood coming out of the walls, of course you're going to freak out. You're going to think, "Oh my God, there's something going on." But something as simple as water coming from nowhere, that's
Mhm.
going to grab your attention, but not as much as the other. So this was like a subtle thing happening too, if you
Mhm.
think about it. It's not a full blown, there's blood coming from the ceiling to christen thee. It is water, a pure form of life that's happening to you and your family, kind of waking you up. Now,
Right. Yeah, it also was emotional. Water does represent emotions.
yes.
And I'm also an Aquarius, which is a water bearer, air
What?
sign,
What?
but water bearer. So
All three of
there's
us.
a lot of connections that I made, after that. I did
All,
not know any of that at the time.
that's scary. All three of us. February 6th.
Oh, January 20th. Mine's
January
tomorrow.
25th. That's a
Yeah,
Saturday.
that's my dad's too. Yeah.
Speaking of
Cool.
your dad,
Hmm.
he's in here.
He experienced it. He was there.
How
He stopped
much
by.
support has your father been? Because I have not, except for one other person, and that would be Sean, his mother, Dee Downs. Other than that, I've never seen a parent support or come on the show like this. This is
My
amazing.
mom's on here too, Edie.
Oh, well,
I heard
hello
that
and welcome
she's
to the
on here.
show.
Yes, and I have several friends on here. Brian Booth, Elda, it's Ellie. She's my best friend. She actually goes to the same healer I do, and so I met her there. So yeah, there's a few names on here I recognize. The rest I don't. But my father, my family has been just phenomenal. I mean, very supportive. My sons are now. They were 7 and 12 at the time. They are now 27 and 31.
Okay.
And of course, they were old enough to remember this. But yeah, my dad actually came to the house when the priest came and did what I would call a house exorcism.
Okay.
He was there, very supportive. He came and tried to help me figure out what was going on when no one else was there and everyone else had moved on. The professionals weren't there, and my father-in-law wasn't over or something trying to figure it out. I know it sounds crazy to try to keep figuring it out, but what else do you do when nothing's making sense? And this water was spraying like an invisible water hose. It would literally shoot across the wall. It would soak the wall. It was water. It was running down the wall. I saw someone did ask, did we have it tested? We did not. I had a jar of water at my dad's, and we started to send it in at one point, and I don't remember at what point that was, but it was probably a year later.
Mhm.
I guess we weren't really sure what to have it tested for. Maybe it was the question back then. He would have to refresh my memory. But I
Yeah.
do remember taking a jar of water there because I mean there was ample water. We would have
Yeah.
to soak the floors were hardwood. It was an older house we had restored. We would take towels. We would dry up the water. The water would be running down the wall. We would dry it up, and it may be an hour later. It might be 5 minutes later, and it would happen again. One time we were sitting having dinner at the dinner table, and it was just me and my husband and the boys, and the water sprayed across, and it did follow emotions. And again, like I said, this wasn't all apparent to me at that moment, but
Yeah.
it followed. The more that there was excitement in the house or anger in the house, and I don't know that there was a particular anger at that dinner table that evening. I don't remember the conversation. It wasn't a big fight, but I do
Yeah.
remember the water hit the light bulbs that were hot and broke the light bulbs.
Oh, wow.
I mean, things you don't think
Yeah.
of. We're sitting there, and I was like, I mean, you don't think about you kind of used to at that point getting wet, but I mean, glass went everywhere, and I wrote about all this in a way to say not, hey, this is so crazy and this is so bizarre, because there's a lot of people who have stories that are crazy and bizarre, but like you mentioned to me earlier, the reason this was so important to me is because it absolutely changed my life. I am very thankful for all. I would not have changed anything that happened, because this was what I would say, this was my soul wanting change. And however that change came about, whatever the catalyst was, I wanted it. And I said, I am ready
Yeah.
for it.
Keith brings up a point. He says, how do you wake somebody up who won't wake up? You throw water on them. That's a valid point. I mean, that's true.
True.
And he also
Mhm.
brings up a valid point, which is a direction I would come from, is telekinesis. Is there a possibility? Have you ever been tested, or any of your family been tested for telekinesis?
No, I've not been tested for that.
I like the way you put that.
I would say,
No. Okay, moving on.
I have not been tested.
You just
for
don't want to
that,
come across as
or-
like you're Carrie. I know what you're hiding. No, but it's a good point. Now, let me ask you this with that, and great point, Keith, because it did lead me a little bit in that direction as well, is going back to the water. Do y'all still have a jar of that water, or has it since?
I do not know that. I don't know. I know it was at my dad's. I took it to his place when he lived in
Okay.
Nitro. It was in a mason
Okay.
jar. I don't even remember it. I really don't remember how I collected it, if it was running and I just kept collecting it a little bit, or I don't remember the details of that. I just remember having
Mike, do you have the jar? We need to know. Do you have the jar? I mean, that's something that's definitely worth asking about. I mean, because maybe there's an unusual property that y'all might have a key to. It's interesting. It goes back again. I go
That's
back up
possible.
to Amityville. The blood that supposedly was poured out there, that's here nor there. But you have possible substance of something that's not supposed to exist in this plane.
I did wonder, we would talk about this after I knew what was going on, that where did the water, where did it come from? We would see it. First person that saw it actually was my sister. My sister was at my house, and it came from the air. So there were a few people, myself included, who did eventually, not within the first couple weeks, but this went on for well over a month before we had house blessings. We weren't Catholic. Also, keep in mind, we were not Catholic. We were just led to the Catholic Church by my preacher. It was not a Pentecostal preacher. It was just it was a Christian preacher at a small town in Ohio, and he said, you need to probably call the father, and he was at a church in Ohio, and he had to get permission from the diocese. And I found out later at several book signings I was at in Ohio that people came up and said, you are very lucky that you had a priest that was able to and would come to your house, and you weren't Catholic, because they said we had tried, and if you weren't Catholic, they wouldn't come.
True.
I had two specific people I remember coming to me. They had a haunted farm or something, but he came and he did try blessings, and we started going to church. Eventually he still had to come back and do the exorcism. So I'm going to say this was like a couple of months period from the start to finish of that. There were many things going on in that house. There wasn't just the water. There were orbs. There were flashes of light. There were noises. One time I thought the house, something had fell on the house. I mean, it was loud. But again, maybe those noises were there and I wasn't aware of them. Maybe my gifts opened and I just started hearing them or seeing things. The kids also had gifts at that time of knowing. There were garages. We had 5-car garage. We had a 3-car garage that was separate in the back, and a 2-car garage that was right beside the house. And we had a police vehicle in the driveway, and we would have the garages locked, and the tires would be busted on those vehicles. And my oldest son would know this and come right. He would know something, and there was a feeling in the air that now I understand there was so much going on, but it was like the hair on your arms would stand up. I would hear the kids would say, "Mom," I knew something was up. And I've got them right now.
It's about to hit the fan, folks.
Yes. And there would be air coming out of the tires in a locked garage. So this also happened. It wasn't just the water, but that was the primary.
Well, thank you for explaining that so people can see there's more substance than just the water. This story is much deeper. You got to get the book to read it.
Yes.
Yeah.
How long
had you been in the house before this started? Had you lived in the house a long time before?
We had lived in the house about 8
Oh, wow.
years. Our youngest was 7 years old, and he was, I think, 2 or 3 when we moved in, maybe 2. So 6 years, 7 years. I'd have to look exactly, but around that time. We had not just moved in this house, and this was not going on when we moved
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Interesting.
Now, are you still with that present husband, or have you moved on? Okay.
No, actually, someone else owns the house
Okay.
now. We did not have any more problems after the exorcism was done. We became involved in the Catholic Church for a few years, and then we eventually divorced, and that was 2014. So in 2014, he lived there maybe another 3 years or so. So approximately 3 years later, 3 or 4 maybe, the house was sold to someone else.
Okay.
And from what I understand, I'm sure I would know because again, my entire family lives in that
Right.
area, and there's nothing going on. There wasn't anything going on for after that exorcism. There was nothing like that going on in the house anymore. There were still, I would still see auras. My youngest would see some lights and different things that I was also seeing. My nephew, I remember coming over, always had an act. So I would say there are families that when you have a grandmother or a mother that is, they don't have to be into metaphysical, they don't have to be in paranormal, they don't have to have any official training. It's not like that. Some people, it's just in your
Yeah.
genes, or it's just who you were in maybe in another lifetime and came back as. But when you're in that family, that is passed, that is
It
passed
is.
along.
I believe
Absolutely.
it.
And I've learned a little bit about my lineage that
Hmm.
way as well. So I think those are things to keep in mind. Although everyone does have the ability to be more
Yes.
intuitive and to see. I've taught many people who've wanted to see auras. I've been able to teach everybody except for one to see an aura on not just necessarily a person, but a plant or the horizon, or just to see what I would call a general aura without the Carillion photography, without having that
Right.
done. It is
No, without a
possible.
full
So
spectrum camera.
everyone can.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because a lot of people in the paranormal, they use full spectrum to try to capture that, and you really can do it yourself. You can see a person's life force, and I will back this up, and then I'm going to make a comment about that. This is some of the stuff I don't talk about. So hey, look, we're talking about something Howie doesn't talk about. With the ability to see one's life force, you can actually kind of tap into their personality. It's kind of like an early warning system. We don't pay attention to it. That's the problem. We are not paying attention to what we're seeing and experiencing. We're like, let's still give them the benefit of the chance. Dumbass. So yeah, it's true. It is very true. And I use a phrase, and you'll hear it at the end of the show, and it comes from Asian rooting. But a lot of this is a lot of Asian techniques. I'm classically taught in Asian arts as far as mysticism and spiritualism. And that's why Ron and I work so well. She has her groove, being a certified medium. But we're both in the paranormal field. We're both researchers. So getting to talk to people like you and your experiences, I have not heard your story except for one other time. And a gentleman by the name of, gonna say it, you guys, Bill Freeman told me about a story that him and Father Guido experienced on one of theirs uh, investigations where water was not pouring out, but it was dripping down the walls. Okay, so it had the waterfall effect, but not this projectile paranormal projection. There we go. That's hilarious. Coming down. So that's why it intrigued me. This took me back to that story, and unfortunately, Bill Freeman is no longer with us, but I retain that story and those stories that he taught me, because that's how we learn and gain experiences, is through other people, and how I learn to help others. So hearing your story now and not reading the book, I'm like, yes. And when you and I first started talking, it was an automatic, this is going to happen. Either way, this
Yeah.
is happening. So
Yeah.
you might as well get over it. And I do believe this is not the only show you will be attending on our network. Just saying.
Okay.
On the flip side, Rhonda, you got. I'm watching your face. You got something for it?
I don't. I mean, the book. I recommend getting the book. I've enjoyed it to the point that I've actually already downloaded Emerald Island.
Okay.
I just download them
Thank
as
you.
like if I find a good author or something that I resonate with, I'm like, oh, let me get another book.
And take no offense, I'm
thank
not a
you.
book reader. I am when it comes to research. But
It's on Audible.
okay, well,
Hey,
then I
I
might pull that
actually,
out then.
yes, it is on Audible. Rain No Evil is the only one on Audible, and it was several years later, and I decided I always knew I wanted to be the one to
Oh,
read it.
good. I love it when the author
And
reads it.
when I think any author, when you're done with the book and you get done writing it, you're just done. You don't want to read it again. So it was out on Audible about 3 years ago. I recorded it myself and narrated it. I really enjoyed doing it and revisiting it again, kind of fresh, with
Mm-hmm.
perspective. There's always something I even can pick up from myself. I think we learn from ourselves more than anyone else,
Oh,
really.
okay. Pop just dropped in. All right, here we go. Ron, I'm gonna have you read that because I can't.
Okay, sure. Hold on.
Oh
A
wow,
sample of
okay.
the
Well,
water
I actually
collected
could see
given to
this.
me was given to a friend who ran municipal water plant. He tested it for one chlorine. There was no trace of chlorine found, and the only conclusion was that it did not come from any water source that we use in daily life. The absence of chlorine indicates that the water was all natural, not treated, not from tap water, not from a municipal water supply.
Bam!
Wow,
Now,
interesting.
here's the question. As a host, I would be saying, how did she forget that? How?
No.
I did forget that. It's ringing a bell now, but when there's so much that happens and you're in, I would say, as we say, walking between
Yeah.
two
Right.
worlds, you do forget. You forget things that you would think I would remember. Now, how did I forget that? But I'm glad that Dad's on here to share that with us because I absolutely believe, and now it's ringing. Like I said, the bells are ringing.
Thank you, Mike. We
So,
really appreciate that. That's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
and thanks for the cake. I got birthday cake when I stopped by
Wow.
What?
today. I'm in Beckley, West Virginia right now, and I got to give a shout out to
Absolutely.
Tamarack. Tamarack, oh my gosh, Tamarack in West Virginia is wonderful. It's right on the turnpike, and I have a dear friend who used to work at the Tamarack, and it's just Tamarack, not the Tamarack. Okay, so it's not the Ohio State University, and I'm at his place right now. And he's an older gentleman. He's a very dear friend of mine, and he used to be a book buyer there. But Tamarack is an amazing place for artists, all sorts of artists, and they treat their artists and artisans just wonderfully. I have many book signings there, and they are wonderful to work with. That's where I'm at. I'm snowed in here in Beckley, but I stopped by my dad's today, and I got birthday cake from his wife Joy. Made birthday cake for me. So
Oh, so the
Nice.
birthday's right there.
yes, that's right. All of us Aquarius air, and that is one sign that is a little confusing to people because most people will say, well, isn't Aquarius a water
Right.
sign? But
For
it's not.
air.
It's an air sign. So think of the power. Water, you're a water bearer. You've got the vase of water, and you have already the air power. So doesn't that make
Yep.
sense? You've got water coming from the air. Literally, it was shooting from the middle of space, somehow formed there. It's incredible. But not all that made sense at the time. It doesn't make sense now, but
Makes perfect sense to me now. You see it, and it's a complete beautiful connection. Now we got just about a minute left in the show. Oh my gosh.
I
With that,
know. It flew by.
Michele, will you accept our invitation to come back here in a couple of months and we can continue this conversation?
yes, I absolutely will. And I heard you mention that there's the podcast before you. I actually have been speaking with the Wicked Women or
Yes.
something. I think is what. Yes. So she has my book right now. I forget her
Okay.
name, but she's reading
So
it, and so there's I think
talk about
a
Valerie.
conglomeration of people.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
Val is a wonderful lady. Her and her host is over in Britain. They're wonderful ladies, absolutely wonderful. We've got so many, and hopefully a couple other networks will smarten up and see this show and try to pull you in. I'm all about that. That's what this is getting more people exposure. And if it's by network, that's why we're associated. That's how it goes. So, Wendy Robertson, thank you, Keith. Absolutely, Wendy. So, let's let people know where they can find you, Michele. Where can they get the book, and how can they contact you if they want to contact you directly? And I know you have some classes you do, so let's take that time and get you out there.
Okay. Yes. So my name is Michele with one L, and you can just type in michelezirkle.com. And I do have a class that I'm going to be teaching specifically to women. It's sexual alchemy, and it's specifically for women. And I also am preparing a dating app coaching. People want to get out there. I have a lot of older people even who want to get out there and they're afraid to. They're not sure what to do, how to create a profile, how to safely meet someone. We're going to cover all of that in the dating app. But the first one I'm releasing next week it's called Sexual Alchemy, and it is specifically for women. You could think of it sort of tantric, with my slant on how you can increase a lot of things in that department for you and your partner.
You know, I'm going to say this. Some men should learn how to use this how do I say this? And it's a really good thing the men don't know how to use it, but maybe they would learn how to treat the women better and be able to tap into their partner better and be able to, yep, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. Maybe even satisfy their woman a little better too on an emotional energy based that.
Right. There's so much. Yes. It's definitely this is not just a purely physical thing. This is, this is all energy. So that's what I've learned over the years. And I think I can bring something to that department.
Sounds amazing. We want to thank your
Yes.
mom and dad for supporting you here. Thank y'all for being here. Thank all of your friends. Hopefully, you'll become travelers and
Yes.
continue to watch Rhonda and I on our Sunday shows. I'm actually
Yes.
been more vocal than I anticipated, which is kind of cool. I didn't cuss nearly as much as I usually do. So please, if you catch me, I'm dropping an F bomb, an S bomb, or a D bomb.
You did great then.
I only dropped one
Good
S bomb.
attention for you.
So bringing this out, I want everybody, please take the time to go check her out. Check out her books.
Yeah.
All of the books, not just that one, all of her books. Check out.
Oh yes, the children's books are they're adorable.
Yes.
Snowy the Square Man. Yeah, and they're adorable. They're for pre-K through third, and Snowy's going to be a sequel. I've got that coming out for Christmas. So I've been writing away. I've been squirreled away up in a little bed and breakfast in Pennsylvania, writing.
Nice.
Okay.
That's what and see, I wanted that. I wanted to be snowed in. I wanted to be at a bed and breakfast in southern Pennsylvania, and I got
You got it.
It happened effortlessly. That's how my life is
Manifesting
changed.
it
That's what I mean. That's the beauty of it. Oh my gosh. I've got some manifesting that I'm working on too, as far as a workshop that I'm going to be offering on manifesting. Absolutely. Powerful.
Love it. Well, travelers and those like, you know what time it is. Unfortunately, it's the top of the hour. And this is, we take that time to remind you. Now, let's say this. And Rhonda might have a little bit more to say, but I'm just going to say this. Be vigilant. Be smart. Protect your heart. Put your boundaries up. Don't let just anybody walk in. Use your mind, body, and soul on everything right now. We really need to do that. But in return, let's continue to help everybody raise their vibration. We need to do this right now. We need to raise the vibration. We need to go to the fifth. And as always, every single one of you travelers, please don't forget, help another traveler or even someone who's not a traveler out. Get them to their surfboard, get them back to the beach, uplift them, support them, and show them love. Until next time, virtue be yours.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you. Thank you.
Yes,
thank you. We will see you all very soon. Michele, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.